Hello everyone and welcome back to Drive with Hollie McRae. Today we are mixing it up a little bit, and for the first time in this podcast we're not going to be talking about four wheels, instead we are talking about two. I am joined with Dakar bike racer Robbie Wallace, who's made his way up from England this morning. It's a pleasure to have you here.
No problem. Yeah, it was a steady drive up. We got here in the end.
I think we're on to, this will be episode 5 or 6 now, and it's the first time that I've had a non-Scottish guest, so we're finally mixing it up.
You're working slowly down the UK.
Slowly working down the country, absolutely. So today we're going to dig into Robbie's recent experience of the Dakar, which you completed at the start of this year, and you're then hosting an event of your own to debrief your whole experience in the desert, which will be happening just a couple of days before this podcast goes out. So we're hoping that if you were maybe wanting to hear Robbie's experience and weren't able to make it to his event, this podcast will hopefully be something that summarises it all for you. So Robbie, tell us about your start to 2025, because not many people can say they experienced the new year in the way that you did.
Yeah, well, it was a different start to the year for sure. Something I've been building up to for a long time. So it's been like a sort of 5-year process. And then, started off, eventually qualified for Dakar after trying for quite some time. And straight into the new year with the Dakar. And I was just really proud of myself to be able to actually get there and get onto the grid with all the top riders and get going, really.
How did it feel when you eventually stepped on that plane and you knew that you were heading over for this experience that you'd been working towards for years?
Well, it didn't actually feel real, really. It was, and because every step you get closer, it's progressive, so you don't really feel it as much as you think you would. So it only really clicked once I've scrutineered and put the stamp down. They were like, right, you're ready to race. And I was like, God, I'm in the Dakar.
So what have I done?
Yeah. So I'd committed myself to 2 weeks of horror and dread. But it was worth it in the end.
So it was the X-Raid Experience team that you were racing with, is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell us how you got to work with them.
So you can go with, there's like customer teams you can use if you're not factory team, or you can even, if you're a really brave man, you can do it Malimoto, which is completely unsupported, which I don't know how they do it, so massive respect to them.
Absolutely.
It's incredible. Like as soon as they get in, there's no assistance from anyone else, and it's for 2 weeks, and it's unbearable, because it was hard for me, so for them it must be incredible. But yeah, with X-Raids, we used them in Argentina to qualify, and then they offered me a place on the team for Dakar. So that you can go with there's 2 teams, really good customer teams that you can go with, and we selected X-Rays as we'd used them in Argentina.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, and they were fine. I mean, there's a bit of a language barrier because it's a Spanish team,
right?
And so there's me and my dad there, and that's about the extent of, our accent's not the easiest at times. So for them we get by with hand signals, but sometimes it's best when you don't understand each other.
Getting by with your holiday Spanish that you picked up over the years.
Well, my dad just shouts louder, he sort of, and eventually they'll understand.
That's the sort of British approach, isn't it? Just repeat it louder and hope that something's going to click.
So, but no, it was a fantastic team to be going with. And I'd use them again. But no, the full experience was tough. The sort of early stages, they really threw it at us this year, because they claimed before it was the hardest one yet. Well, that didn't sit me in a good position, but I didn't know, they try and say that every year, but it really was. The first week they really put us through the mill. The second stage it's called the Chrono 48 stage.
Yeah.
And that's 1,000 kilometres in 48 hours, unsupported, and so the stage is 1,000 kilometers long, and there's certain camps along the way.
Yeah.
And when the clock gets to like 5 o'clock, you have to stop at the next camp. I think I got to the second camp, and then by that time the sun was setting, and I'd had one of the hardest days on the bike I've ever had in my entire life. I think I'd covered about 500 kilometers at that time, so 300 miles. It's a long way.
Knowing that you need to do it all again the next
Yeah,
day
well,
as well.
but you're thinking every kilometre today is one less tomorrow.
Yeah.
I got to the second camp, and then it was getting dark, and the fella says, you can stop here if you want, or you can keep going. And I says, no, I'll keep going, there's still a bit of sun. Anyway, and then the sun set really fast, and I was thinking, oh no.
What have I done?
What have I done? So I got the lights on the bike, and I was thinking, these lights aren't meant to be really raced with them all for riding out on the morning. And it started to get a little bit scary. But just prior to that, actually, just before the sunset, it's probably one of my favourite points of the rally. I'd been on the bike like 11 hours or something, and the sun was just setting, and it opened up onto this like salt flat type thing with the mountains rising out of either side, and the sun was just beaming through the middle, and I was full chat, so it'd have been sort of 900 mile an hour. Just sat over the back of the bike, and the helicopters were flying round, and I could see my shadow. It was like 50 metres long out the side of my bike because the sun was so low. And I thought, oh yeah, this is why I'm here.
Some absolute pinch me moments.
But for the previous few hours, I'd been shouting, cursing and swearing in my helmet, thinking, God, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But no, that made that day all worth it. And then when you get to the next camp, he says, oh, you've got like 2 minutes, you can keep going if you want. And that was an easy decision to not keep going. I says, no, I think we're done there.
Yeah.
And then just as I said that, actually 2 bikes returned down the track who tried to keep going, and it was just too much. Couldn't because you can't navigate as well.
Yeah. It's crazy. I've been so looking forward to sitting down and hearing your perspective of it all, because I think the Dakar really captures people's imaginations, and it's just so extreme. And I think from my dad's point of view, when his WRC career came to an end, he wanted to push himself in different sorts of ways, and the Dakar was one of the ways that he wanted to do that. Obviously, he had one very successful outing in Dakar, one very not successful outing. But with his experience of the Dakar, obviously he's in a car, he's with someone else. You're doing that totally solo. And as you say, you had one of those incredible moments when the sun's going down and you're like, this can't be real life. But cut to an hour or two beforehand, you're cursing yourself, and all of that's happening inside your head. You're not sharing those experiences with other people as it's going. How was that? Because you can't really train for that.
No, it's just the nature of the sport, with it having so many variables. It's a real niche, and and there's the talent aspect to it, which you need to get there, and then the mental aspect is like even stronger. You need more mental strength than talent for Dakar, and it was just an incredible experience, and it's the combination of all these things together, and then the experiences you have, and the highs and the lows. That's what makes it sort of very special. It turns the heads of everyone around the world. You say Dakar to people who really don't have any interest in motorsport, and they've heard of Dakar. It rings a bell in everyone's head, and that just shows like the power of it, and the sort of the mystique around it.
Yeah. How did it feel for you when you were sat on the start line before stage 1? Did it feel like you were living within your own body, or was there a lot going on?
Well, because my number was 143, I think it was. I forgot now.
I think it was from my research. That rings a bell.
143. And there was only 145 bikes. I was actually starting third on the stage.
Right.
So I was like the third runner on the
Yeah.
Dakar, I thought this is quite something in itself. So and then I actually passed on the prologue. I passed the lad in front of me. I was like, oh, I'm second on Dakar now, and I was thinking, oh come on, I can pass it. I want to at least lead like 100 meters of Dakar, and I was catching the lad towards the end. But no, so that was quite surreal. But yeah, just sat waiting when I was quite relaxed actually, because I thought, it doesn't really matter what happens now. I've done it. Even if I crash 10 meters after the start line, I've still been a Dakar participant, and so I was quite relaxed, and it was a real, good feeling.
And you didn't crash 10 metres from the start.
No,
you had a
I
really
didn't.
good first stage.
Yeah.
Tell us, once you got that first stage under your belt, how you were feeling.
I just felt confident. Just nice to sort of get the bike out, give it a good thrashing, and know that it's going to be fit for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And that's a couple of weeks, it's quite crazy saying that. And you do 2 or 3 days, and after that 48-hour stage, I was absolutely exhausted, I thought. And I was thinking how long's left there, 10 days or something. And 10 days, it's like you're saying that to yourself in your tent, you're like, bloody hell.
Yeah.
But you just persevere, and I have done a 2-week rally before, called the Africa Eco Race, which is the old Dakar route through Morocco, Senegal, Mauritania, and that actually finishes on the beach at Dakar. So I did do that in sort of a couple of years ago in preparation to try and sort of build my profile a bit. So I sort of half knew what to expect, which was good, because I found myself on Dakar this year, instead of looking forward, thinking 2 weeks, it's a long way.
Yeah.
It was just one day at a time, Then don't think any further ahead than a day or anything like that. You just cover the kilometres, 1 kilometre at a time, ticking them off. And then you do get there. But it's just the mental strength to sort of keep yourself grounded with that and where you're at, and so you're not making mistakes, and just bit by bit.
Yeah. Then of course we get to stage 4, where your Dakar experience was totally turned on its head.
Yeah.
Tell us about what happened on that day.
Well, it'd be good if I could
as
remember
much as you
it.
can, yeah.
No, I was going all right, to be fair, and the ground suited me. It was really rocky, and sort of I prefer the more technical side of things, or the high speed stuff. It's the in between and the sand that I'm not so good at. And luckily it's on camera or on the GoPro, and I just seem to catch an edge on the front wheel, it spits me off, and anyway I end up unconscious for a little while. But
how far into the stage was it?
Not far. I think maybe like 150k. Actually, not far. That's not far in Dakar terms.
By a lot of people's standards, that's very far into the stage.
Yeah, it's so it was. I got my only recollection myself is I was riding along, and then I thought my head's hurting a bit here, and so I came to a stop, pulled my helmet off, and I just saw a big mark in the side of my helmet, and I thought, I think I've knocked myself out here. So
wow.
I looked at my helmet, it was a bit damaged, and I felt my head, and it was just throbbing.
Yeah.
And then when you're concussed, your mind's racing in all different directions, and I kept going a little bit further, and then I knew something had happened, and I was even more concerned that I couldn't remember it.
So do you reckon that you were unconscious
I was
after the crash, had then come to and got back on your bike without really knowing?
That's what happened, yeah.
Wow.
Because you just natural instinct, you just
get back on and
I think if I came back as a zombie, I'd still be getting knocked back on a bike. It's just
get the gloves back on.
It's just built instinctively into you,
wow.
because you've fallen off that many times. So, and then fortunately I came round a corner and there was a photographer there in the middle of nowhere. The helicopter must have dropped her off or something, I don't know. And that sort of made me stop. because I was still just going, and I wasn't navigating. I was just sort of following tracks. My head was in the clouds, and then I stopped and I thought, I've had a few concussions before, and I know the dangers of it, and I know someone who's ridden on with a concussion and then ended up having a fatal accident. So there's sort of things like that going through my mind. And I mean, I could have maybe trickled on for a bit, but would it? You don't know. So anyway, I sort of made the decision. I just said I need help.
And the fact that someone's there as well, what are the chances of that?
Yeah, and
if that's made you stop and say
I was
something?
thinking if they weren't there, would I have stopped or not? So I don't know. And then the helicopter was there within minutes, and I got whipped out the desert.
Yeah.
And then fortunately, it was. So I missed the next stage, and so I got a stage maximum, but you can still continue in the rally. But if I'd have stopped again, I'd have been out the rally. So yeah, fortunately, I was able to catch up with the rally the next day via one of the organisation's planes. They flew me to the next bivouac, which was handy, and then it was rest day the day after. So I had a nice break, and then I got the green light to go on the following day, and then on that following day I actually had my best stage result, I think, that one or the day after, because they were two really, really fast days, and that's sort of where I seem to excel, on the really fast days. I don't know whether that's just through stupidity or I just like going fast,
throwing everything at it.
Yeah, so I think I was 30, I think I had 34th on one of them days, which was like I was really, really proud of that result.
A very practical question here, but what did they do with your bike when you got airlifted out? Did someone have to go by and scoop it up and get it ready for you restarting, or?
So I don't actually know.
The photographer took it.
I don't actually know what happened to my bike, but I suspect they have sweeper trucks, which follow the rally, and they just they can maybe take like a car and 3 bikes or something. Yeah. So generally that's what happens with the bikes. They'll just get collected by the sweeper truck, and then because they have a couple of them, they sort of rotate each day, get into the next bivouac. But it does happen on previous rallies. The sweeper truck has took like 3 days to catch up with the rally. Okay. So sometimes you could be left without your bike for God knows how long. But I think if you're in a really remote area or in the dunes, the helicopter will just lift your bike out and then drop it somewhere where the truck can get it. Right.
So luckily the bike gets collected, gets to where it needs to go. You get to the hospital, get checked over, and there's no major issues there. No. When you got that sort of clean bill of health, you're ready to go again. Was there ever a doubt in the back of your mind saying, do I actually want to start again? Or were you just ready to get back on the bike and give it a go?
Well, with it being a concussion and something, and like I didn't really have much recollection of the event, of that day, I was thinking in my mind, this is a bit stupid. And I know with certain other sports, they say you have to have like 2 weeks off or something from a concussion. Yeah. So there was them doubts, but then, I mean, I'm taking huge risks being there anyway, and I thought, what's another one?
You've gone this far.
So yeah, I mean, I'd protected myself by getting out the rally when I knew I wasn't right. Yeah. And then I rejoined it thinking I was right. So half right. But I was worried that I'd have another big crash and then another concussion, and I know if you get too close to each other, because like Sam Sunderland, he was in with Toby Price in the cars. There were two bike riders that both won Dakar on bikes, and they were in a car this year, sharing a car. And Sam, as the co-driver, he did get 2 concussions in the co-driver's seat. Wow. And so he had to pull out for that reason. Yeah. But no, I mean, carried on, and I had a few near misses. But we escaped, and I did have a bit of a big crash on the last stage that I haven't told anyone about.
Oh, exclusive!
I was trying to keep that one to myself, but not so that nobody worried about me. But I I did have a fairly hefty off that nobody saw.
Okay, we'll come to that in a second. But before we do, let's focus on the positives, because as you mentioned, when you did restart, you then had 2 very successful stages after that. Did it just sort of like click back into place when you got back on the bike? Did you have that sort of burning passion to make it to the end even more so because of what happened?
Yeah, I mean, it would take a lot for me not to get to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the mentality of everybody at Dakar. So yeah, the drive was still there, and I hadn't lost an ounce of it.
Yeah.
And that was what I was aiming for, to get to that finish line, and well, I did, you know, and that was the whole aim of the full trip, was to be stood on that finish line one way or another, and we did.
You certainly did. What did it mean to get that finisher's medal?
Well, because I'd missed the stage. I was eligible as general classification finisher, but to get the finisher's medal, you have to complete every stage under your own steam.
Right.
So that eluded me a bit.
So did you get a certificate in that case?
Well, I got like a big plaque thing.
Oh, there we go. That's
bigger
still
than
works.
a medal.
Hey, there you go. You swindled the system.
Yeah, maybe more scrap value in that. But now when I finished, initially the disappointment was there for 30 seconds, but then the overwhelming joy of just actually finishing. And the first thing I was thinking was, I was just actually happy that I was alive.
Yeah.
and I'm like exactly that, not just as a saying, but I was just pleased that I could feel my toes and fingers and everything, because
absolutely
you're taking some hefty risks for a fortnight. So medal or no medal, I wasn't too disappointed, but it will always be a little scratch in the back of my mind, thinking, could we?
Now let's rewind to that sneaky little crash we weren't telling anyone about. What happened there?
Yeah, it was it was on the last stage. It was only about 50k, and so they did a mass start at the end, which was really fun, because they used to do that. So
I was going to ask how that was. That would have been a cool experience.
And even though everyone's been racing for 2 weeks, and even though everyone just wants to get to the finish, if you put so many lads on a start line, doesn't matter who they are, they're just still idiots.
Takes you back to school sports day, you're like getting the elbows out.
Everybody was absolutely flat out, and we were like,
wow,
oh God, we shouldn't be doing this. But anyway, so we were flying along, and then the helicopter's there following you, you know, and there's people watching. You just think, oh yeah, sod it. And so I was flying along on that, which should have maybe backed off a bit, to be honest. But we came over some dunes, and the dunes there are hundreds of meters tall. It's mind-boggling the size of them. They're the biggest in the world, in that empty quarter of Saudi Arabia. And I came down onto this plateau, and it was hard to see, and I was just keeping it pinned, and then there was a little rise in the ground, and it just slapped up my back wheel, and then I had a tank slap. Normally you'd get 1, 2 and you'd be off, but this one did 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was thinking, God. But luckily each one I was scrubbing off a bit of speed, and then on the 5th one it just spat me straight over, and I had a really big tumble. And we wear airbag vests now, which are quite good. Similar to I don't know, like horse riding, have some, equestrian things, but they're a bit better, and they work off a G sensor, so they are quite good, but they do go off sometimes when they maybe shouldn't go off. But every time they do go off, it costs you 60 quid for a new cartridge. So I've definitely helped Alpine Star's stock.
A little money making scheme.
I went through quite a few cartridges. So in the end, I was trying to get a deal out the Alpine Star man at his truck.
Yeah.
I said, come on. I've been back here so many times. Must be a bit of discount. He said, no. And I said, oh, you must have some you'll have some merch or something in them drawers. And eventually he gave in and gave me a cap and a t-shirt.
I love it.
Well,
You got something out of
got
it.
something out of it, yeah.
Pulling a bit of haggling.
Yeah. True Yorkshireman style.
Love that. Well, let's talk a little bit about the sort of practicalities behind the Dakar, because it is a race like no other. And you mentioned sort of getting to checkpoints, you get your tent out. What's it like being under such physical stress? Obviously a lot of mental challenge throughout that 2 weeks. And you're also on the move the entire time, living in tents. Tell us what that was like.
Yeah, so on the marathon stage and the chrono 48 stage, 1,000 kilometre one, you have to be self-sufficient, and that's the hardest bit. Like on the chrono 48 stage, they just provide you with a tent. Like when you arrive at the checkpoint, they provide you with a tent, a roll mat, and then an army ration pack and a sleeping bag. And so like you're just sort of existing at that point, trying to just eat as much as you can and then just sleep the best you can whilst doing a little bit of maintenance on your bike. But yeah, it's like I was staying in a tent every night, even on when we were in the main bivouac. But the factory lads now, they have camper vans, so I think there should be. I'd like to see a band to them, to be honest, but only because I didn't have one, of course. But no, it's early starts and lack of sleep. You know, you might only be getting 5 hours, maybe 4, even some nights for some people. And you know, every morning we're up at maybe sort of 4:30 to get going. So it does build up over time, and like the rest days welcome for many, and the bikes need it as well because they just get fully stripped down, you know, fine tooth comb over everything. But it's just intense. It's intense, and you don't feel you feel tired, you feel exhausted and everything, but you just seem to get on with it.
You're sort of out the other end of it.
Yeah, and every morning riding out to the start of the stage, 200 kilometres. Some days, and it was like 3 degrees. So I had ski salopettes on, a big thick jacket, and then ski gloves, and then them like hand guards that like farmers have them on quad bikes, you know. And you just shake it all the way to the start of the stage. So when you get there, it's uncomfortable, and that's sometimes the worst part of your day.
Right.
So once you get going, you're all right. But that's something some people didn't anticipate, you know. Right. So like there was some lads who hadn't brought like thick trousers and stuff, and that would have really affected them. Yeah. Because you use it just by being cold uses a lot of energy and saps you.
What would the temperature get to like in the afternoon? Was it?
So like the hottest we had in the dunes was maybe just over 30. It wasn't unbearable. So
there's a lot of variation though, going from so cold in the morning to... Yeah. I mean, I struggle to be in anything but a bikini when it gets over like 20 degrees. I've definitely got the Scottish blood in me. I'm like, it's too hot. Yeah. Let alone being in all of your kit.
I've had it in Qatar before when I've been racing. That was touching like 46, 47 degrees. But that is dangerous, to be fair. It's anything over sort of 36, 37 starts to get a bit scary, because you're thinking, if I come off in this heat, you know, and if the helicopter's not there for 10, 15 minutes, you know, that's all it takes for you to take a turn.
Absolutely.
But no, the heat, it wasn't too bad, which was, and it's quite nice because I struggle in the really high temperatures, just probably because I'm not used to it, you know, and not living in that sort of climate. Yeah. But yeah.
What do you carry with you in terms of like rations, like food, drink, energy gels? How do you keep yourself going through those long stages?
So the nutrition is one of the hardest points, because you wake up and you'll have your breakfast best you can, whether it be, I mean, I had a lot of vitamins and powdered foods that I took myself. Yeah. And then also the organisation provide breakfast. So you try and grab a bit of that, but again, time limited, because you're like, how much do I value my sleep over my food and things, and then you won't be back for 12 hours at least, so you sort of skipping a meal, and you only get like a 20-minute break. So when you're racing, you'll refuel once generally, because the bike can,
you and the bike.
yeah, the bike can do 250k. Well, that's what the bike can do more, but that's what they reckon, that's the autonomy they need, 250k, which is like, the bikes carry 32 litres of fuel, but you only get like a 20-minute window to fill your bike up and fill yourself up.
Yeah.
And that's tough. So like, I just took a few energy gels, like a few sort of cereal bars and things, just stuff that I can really throw down quick, and then quite a few hydration tablets just to put into my camelback, because you drink 2-3 litres maybe in the morning, then 2-3 litres in the afternoon. Yeah. So it's trying to keep on top of all that, and then when you finish, first thing I do is just eat whilst the bike's getting tended to, and then I'll wait maybe a couple of hours, and then I'll have another full meal again. So I'm trying to keep on top of it. But after the 2 weeks, I lost 5 kilograms. So that was quite a lot.
The Dakar diet.
Yeah, it's an expensive diet.
Wow, yeah. Such a story to tell though, and an incredible way to kick off your year. Obviously you come back home with all of these stories, but it is so far removed from the life that you do live when you are back at home. Talk to us a little bit about what Robbie Wallace's day-to-day is like when he's not on the bike.
So I work for a utility company building and maintaining power lines in northeast of England, or more Yorkshire Dales area. So yeah, it is a fine balance, but I do work a huge amount of hours, really, in consideration to prepping for Dakar and things. That was really tough with all working evenings and things, because Dakar itself is a job. Planning for Dakar is a full-time job. So yeah, like, came straight back from Dakar, and then we had that storm on the Friday after I came back, and then once we'd mopped up in our area, went over to Ireland to help them out, to get them back on, and then came back. But I think it was probably quite good for my mentality, because coming back's such a big low.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
When your body's been coursing full of adrenaline for 2 weeks, and then suddenly it just stops. It was, I don't know, you feel like pulled down into a bit of a hole.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, now what, you know?
The storm kept you going.
Yeah. So that storm sort of, and it just keeps you busy. And I was forewarned of this by people who'd done Dakar previously, saying it can be tough when you get back, you know, coming down from being on the top of the world.
Yeah.
And so this is what other people have had.
Because I suppose you've had experiences that so few people in the world can relate to. It's not something that you can just chat to someone about willy-nilly.
Yeah, it's like when you're away in the most extreme circumstances, and you know, or even if something horrible's happened on the event, and then you'll get a text from like my mum saying, "Oh, the hedgehogs are back in the garden," or something, and you're like, and it's such a weird thing to read, because you're like, oh, that's life
just
that's existing elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's weird when you have little moments like that sort of bring you back to reality. But I think it's good that you sort of keep in check with reality, or else the crash is even harder, you know, after stuff like this.
When you take part in events like the Dakar, are you using your like work holidays in order to go and do these crazy adventures?
Yeah. So I'm very tactical with my holidays. And fortunately the company I work for, Northern Power Grid, they did give me some extra holidays to do Dakar this year, and then they also provided me with a bit of support. But yeah, that is the hardest thing, And everyone's saying, "Oh, well, you're always on holiday, you." And I say, "I'm very rarely on holiday."
I challenge you to do a holiday like this.
Yeah, it's. I can't remember the last time I was laid on a beach. Put it that way.
So, talk to us about where your initial love for motorsport came from, because you can't go on and take on something like Dakar without that huge burning passion behind you. When did it all start for you?
So through my dad, he sort of always had bikes all his life.
Yeah.
From being a young lad, and he's always done it himself. Like my granddad wasn't really interested in motorsport or whatever, so my dad sort of built the passion for himself, and he did a fair bit of rallying in his 20s, and then sort of went back onto the bikes after he had us. And then I'd always been around bikes, you know, growing up, and then eventually I was just poking him, saying, "Oh, you know, I can have a bike, you know." And my mum never wanted me to have a motorbike, and then got the little pit bike thing for Christmas. I think I was 8, and then had that for a couple of years, and then I'd seen a lad at school racing. I said, "Oh, you know, I want to race, and then after enough pestering, got a 85, and then started doing enduros, and then we've just done that ever since, really, just enduro racing locally, and then that went on into British Championship racing, and the British Enduro Championship did quite a bit of that.
So it was quite quickly that you went from just wanting to have a bike and be involved to competing.
Yeah.
Very quickly you wanted to...
I knew I wanted to do it.
Be up for the challenge.
But I'm a really competitive person as well, so like, you know, and as soon as I started doing that, I mean, my very first event, I was crippling with nerves. I said, "Oh, I don't want to start on the start line, I want to start after everyone else."
Right.
But then now, when I go and do like a local enduro on the start line, there isn't really any nerves because I've done it a million times. You know,
becomes like second nature to you.
So it's funny how it works, but and we just incremental steps, you know, and like just getting to the British Enduro Championship was a really big thing for me when I was like 17, and we did that for quite a few years, and then when I was about 19, 20. I mean, I'd heard about the Dakar through one of my dad's friends, who was working for Nissan when your father did it.
This is actually quite funny. So Robbie's come into the new Hollie McRae collection and pointed out his dad's mate on one of the pictures on the wall.
Dave's on the wall.
So cool.
So he sort of. I was only maybe 7 or 8, and then that was the words Dakar were floating about then, and then we'll have been following him and whatnot, and then so that was sort of when I'd heard about it, and then every year in January, because there's nothing on really in January around the world apart from Dakar, so for any motorsport fans, that's like the start to the year means Dakar for a lot of people. And then I'd watch it on TV every year. Yeah. And then I was thinking, you know, like, oh, I'd love to do that one day, but never really thought of it as a real prospect. Yeah. And then once I got to about 19, 20, I was thinking, what are my qualities as a rider? And my best qualities are I'm good at going fast, like in terms of like not technical as such, more just high speed stuff, you know, would be quite rare down the straight that somebody would outbrake me or whatever. Right. No, so like there's my qualities there, and then I like to think I'm quite an intelligent rider in terms of being cautious and knowing the limits well, and then also the navigation appealed to me. So there was a combination of things. I thought, oh well, I might be all right at this sport. Yeah. So we did this little rally in Portugal. Ran by Rally Moto, which is a UK company, and I got a stage win on the first rally. I thought, well,
nice.
What's next? And then we were advised to go and do some training camps and stuff in Morocco in the dunes and whatnot. But we didn't follow the advice, and I went straight into an 8-day desert rally.
Throwing yourself in at the deep end.
We didn't have a proper rally bike. We had a doctored Husqvarna 500 like motocross bike that we'd just slapped some navigation tower on and found a bigger fuel tank, and it wasn't the best, but it's funny looking then now when I'm thinking about it, the difference between me on that event, the gear I was wearing and everything, compared to me at Dakar. The difference between them two riders is staggering. Like, just the quality of my gear and everything, and just the amount of things that I didn't know then that I know now.
Yeah.
And I did finish the rally, and I did quite respectable in it, but on one of the stages, we came into the sand dunes, and they were the first sand dunes I've ever seen in my life. And
what are these?
And I had to ride across them, so that was
wow.
a really, really steep learning curve. But we made it, and then over the years I've just plugged away, building myself up, doing slightly bigger rallies. But Dakar never felt a real possibility until about 18 months ago. I thought, could we do it? Because it's a financial thing, you know. It's 50 grand to do it. And
huge commitment before you even get there.
It's a lot of money to find.
Yeah.
So the ball was rolling the best it could by the events I'd done, you know, Africa Eco Race and these. And I thought, if I'm going to commit to it, I need to commit to it now.
Yeah.
So it was about this time last year that I finally committed. And then I had to go to Argentina in June last year to qualify.
Yeah.
And then it all rolled from there. But raising the funds, and like I say, it's a full-time job.
Yeah, for sure. So in a way it was sort of the myth of Dakar and the stories that you'd heard throughout your childhood that encouraged you to make that move from enduro to the more off-roading rally raid. So it's always been in the back of your mind somewhere, and then every step you've taken, I guess, just gets you a little bit closer each time.
Yeah, it's because it's such a big event. Like I say, I never thought that I'd be able to get there. But with the support and when I was gathering sponsors, I struggled for sponsors for Argentina, which was the qualifier, which I had to do to get to Dakar this year. Yeah. And so we struggled for sponsors for that, so there was a lot of outlay to get there. So that was a big commitment. And at the time, we were in discussions thinking, you know, is it possible? What happens if we go here and then I can't commit to Dakar? And I thought, well, no, I have to. You know,
yeah. You need to put
if it's
all
now
in.
or never. And that was the mentality I went forward with. And then met some fantastic people in terms of getting sponsors, and a few sponsors took a big chance on me. Just lads who don't even know me, you know, and they're happy to write a check for me. And as soon as I was saying Dakar, it was the ears prick, and you get a big, broad amount of people coming in to sort of assist you with it. And then I was almost there or thereabouts. Yeah. And then I held a supporters night in my local town, and we raised, I think, £7,500, which was incredible. And that cemented me on the start line, really. But yeah, it was a lot of nerves, a lot of hard work, and a lot of late nights on the laptop, just trying to get there, firing off emails. I reckon I'll have only had maybe a 5% email reply from people. I was just emailing everyone looking for support. But you know, if I go again, I'd like to think, well, people have been saying second time round would probably be a bit easier. Now you've proved yourself having decent results. Yeah.
So obviously ahead of Dakar, you've got 5 years of rally raid experience behind you. You've mentioned a couple of the events throughout this podcast, obviously. Argentina is your qualifying, Qatar, Africa as well. You've travelled to some very far-flung places that a lot of people will never go to in their lives, and you've done it all in the name of this sport. Tell us, what is the reality of travelling for your biking career? What has it been like? Has it lived up to the hype? Has it taken a bit more out of you than what you'd expected?
Well, I've seen a lot of the world, and I've not seen much of my bike because it's always on a ship somewhere. So just today, actually, my Dakar bike is just being collected.
Nice.
So, and that's in Barcelona now. So that's currently en route back. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I've got it
back to home
I made
turf.
sure, I didn't wash it or anything. So I want it in like Dakar 1.
Cool.
Rough condition, like a Le Mans car. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that bike again. That nursed me across the desert. But yeah, I've done a lot of travelling. It's took me to all around Europe. You know, Portugal, Spain, Hungary, Greece. Seen some fantastic places. Met some fantastic people. And in the rally world, I think it's the same in a lot of motorsport. People from hugely different backgrounds, who are hugely different personalities, still have a common interest.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've got on with some people you would never anticipate to speak to, but ended up getting on really well with them. But yeah, some of the, it's nice to see around the world like the passion for motorsport. So like in Argentina, it's wild. Like they live for it. It's and when the prologue stage was the WRC. What's the last stage? The power stage.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the power stage on when they did the WRC there, and that was our
Your
prologue.
Cool.
And so there was thousands of spectators lined down the mountains on these rocks overhanging the track and stuff, and that's the moments I really enjoy. And then the other place was Portugal on a race called Porto Alegre 500, and it's a 2-day Baja, and the spectators there are absolutely crackers.
I think we've got a trophy from that through there.
Right, we'll have to have a look.
Yeah, we'll need to get your eyes over it and see if it matches up.
Yeah, that was that it almost gave me sort of like Group B vibes from the spectators in the road giving it everything.
How good.
So it's really nice to see that around the world.
Yeah.
But no, it's took me to some crazy places. Like I've been to Mauritania, which is like the third least visited country in the world. I think they have 15,000 tourists a year.
Jeez.
And
you're one of them.
And I was one of them, yeah. But like, I mean, you see a lot of poverty there. There was, as soon as you cross the border, there was horse and carts, you know, and you wouldn't see any cars really, and a lot of mud huts and things. And then it does make you question things, you know. Like I'm riding to on a £30,000 bike, and then they've got nothing. You know, like that bike's probably worth what they'll earn in a lifetime. So you do have moments like that, but then I don't know, it's hard to process things like that and decide what is the right decision. But
for sure, and it's clear that like when you're conscious of that, and it's not just going over your head, that's one of the most important things. Because there's not really too much this individual person can do to help in situations like that, but if you're sort of aware of your privilege and what you can bring to a country when you visit out of your sort of hobby, then that's what it's about.
I stopped so in Mauritania we had the army protecting the bivouac each night and things, and they're safe because I guess the government don't want anything to go wrong. But I did make an effort. I stopped at a little like village shop, and it was just like a little shanty village type thing, and there's a little shop. I thought, I wonder what I can get in here. So I went in, and anywhere in the world I found has Coca-Cola.
Yeah, it is mad, isn't it?
That was weird, but I thought, right, I'll have one of them. But no, all these cultures that I've experienced, and I've been over to the Middle East, and I've seen a lot and I've done a lot, all in the name and the pursuit of Dakar.
All because you got a bike for Christmas one year.
All because I got a little pit bike, and it's cost me a fortune ever since. But and my dad a fortune as well. Wow. So, but no, and all the events I've always done with my dad. I don't know whether my mum would let me race without him being at a rally, but yeah, he's always a good help.
That's a special thing for a father and son to do together. Like the stories that you'll have created must be very special. Yeah,
we've done a lot, and I don't think he'd have gone anywhere near as far as around the world without the rallying. He's just happy going to France or Spain. You know, just
practicing that Spanish.
Yeah, just shouting a bit louder at them.
Well, I think we will take a pause there for some quick fire questions. Now, every guest I've had on so far, I've got some variation of quick fire questions. And my first one for you is, what has been the most memorable drive of your career?
Oh, well, I think we've talked about
the one that we've just spoken about.
I'll settle for that. Yeah.
I feel like that one's pretty deserving of the top spot.
Yeah, definitely.
What is an event that you would love to compete in?
I'd quite like to do the Western Beach Race or the Scott Trial.
Okay.
Like the two pinnacles of them certain disciplines.
Yeah. What is a motorsport heartbreak that will always stay with you?
Probably the first time I ever had an engine failure on a bike when I was like 12. My 14. My YZ125 blew up. I was absolutely devastated.
Oh no!
Because I was doing well, and
Yeah.
that was sort of the first slap of the reality of motorsport. But yeah,
Oh, I can just imagine 12 years old, you'd be gutted.
I think there's a few tears.
Oh no! Talking of podiums, has there been a favourite of your career?
Probably most proud of, not so much podium, but I got a stage win at Hellas Rally in Greece in the driving rain.
Wow.
And I was really proud of that. And there was 320 bikes or something absolutely ridiculous. And I got the stage win there, and it put me into the provisional lead of the rally. So,
Cool.
And that was my most proud result.
If you had to swap to another motorsport discipline, which do you think you would excel in?
Well, I thought that was going to be an easy question until you said, which do you think you'll excel in?
What would you try first? And then what do you think you would excel in?
Well, I'd love to do rallying. But I think I'd probably excel in stock cars. Because I'm a bit rough.
Love it. Well, again, you can try both, see what one comes out tops. What is a motorsport experience still on your bucket list?
Still on my bucket list. I mean, just a motorsport experience. I'd love to go and watch Le Mans. And experience the full thing.
Yeah.
You know, with the fans there camping and the full 24 hours.
And lastly, who would you like to see on this podcast in the future?
From my side of things, it'd be good to get Billy Bolt on.
We will get that one added to the list. I've got some amount of suggestions coming through from people on the podcast and people commenting as well. But yeah, it was actually on these quick fire questions to my uncle Alistair, and when I asked him what's a motorsport experience still on your bucket list, he said Dakar on a bike.
All right.
Now, my uncle Alistair and my dad started their careers on bikes, obviously then went into cars, but bikes are my uncle Al's top. And he does say, he was like, I would still love to do Dakar. My heart tells me I want to do it on a bike, but my head says maybe not. If someone was, not necessarily Uncle Al, but if someone was looking at Dakar and saying, I want to give that a go, what would your first piece of advice to them be?
Go for it.
Yeah?
Because it all started with an idea for me, and I was fortunate enough I was able to execute the idea. I mean, you have to have a good standard of riding, you have to have a good mentality, and then you have to be able to finance it as well.
Yeah.
But there is people who will support you, you know, and it's a realistic thing that you can do if you put your mind to it. You know, it's like everything starts with an idea. So if you want something, you can get it if you really do want it. But I mean, I don't know if he's got age on his side, but
I know, do you reckon 50-something Al McRae could have a go?
Well, I don't know what the oldest competitor would be.
I think his knees are already quite knackered, so it's maybe not the best idea.
I'd say once you sort of start getting past 50, your chances are looking a bit slim. But never say never.
Maybe go for the car. Maybe
Yeah. Well, you can do it in a car or a side by side thing.
get the car under your belt and then think about the bikes.
Yeah, get a feel for it in the car, and then I think if you did it in the car, I don't think you'd ever want to do it on a bike. When you're passing the bikers and things, you think, oh, I've got it pretty good here in my air-conditioned car.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably a better place to start.
For sure.
So, an epic start to the year for you. Is there much else in the works for 2025 going forward?
So I'll still be continuing doing my enduro racing at home, and then I'm aiming to do a rally in summer, a European rally. And then I will be racing in Qatar towards the end of the year. And then I might be attempting another big event in January, which would be Dakar again. But
I was going to ask if you've got yourself geared up for round 2. Surely, like, now you know you've done it once. You know what to expect.
I know.
That initial jump has been done.
I have to make the decision because it's like, it's easy for everyone to say, oh yeah, do it again. Yeah, I loved following you. Oh, it's all right for you to say that. But
Sat in your bedroom at home.
Yeah, I know. I love following the Dakar every year. If I could poke somebody else to go and do it, I would. But no, I'm leaning towards it, to be honest. And like I said, it's the same thing with the balls rolling. And it's got quite some pace on now after Dakar. Yeah,
you've got the momentum there, so it'll be easier to initiate it.
If I don't, will I regret it? I don't know. But then, if I do and something happens, will I regret it? You know, it's like, it's a big commitment, but there's not many people do it once, put it that way.
Absolutely. You've got the ball rolling and it'll be difficult to sit on your sofa and watch it next year, I can imagine.
It would be frustrating, so we'll see, but expect something soon.
So there's plenty in the works. Robbie Wallace is very much still ready for action, and we'll be very excited to see what comes in the year and beyond. For those of you that haven't come across Robbie before, I will leave links to his social channels in the description so that you can follow along in the future. And for those of you that did attend Robbie's Dakar debrief event, I hope that you enjoyed it. Will there be any sort of fundraising for events going forward at that event, or is it just a sort of thank you to
it's
people who've supported
charity.
you?
I'm doing it for charity.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to do it for the Yorkshire Air Ambulance and the Mind charity. So
great.
I think, so sort of giving a bit back. And then we'll see. But I mean, fundraising is an integral part of getting to Dakar. So in the future, if we are committing again, there'll be something similar.
Well, I hope that your event goes very well, and we'll be keeping an eye on social media of what you get up to for the rest of the year. And for now, thank you for joining us on Drive. It's been a pleasure to talk through your Dakar experience. And for those of you listening, I hope that you very much enjoyed it. I will see you again shortly in another one. Thank you, Robbie.
Thanks for having me.